two, one, action.
Hey everybody, welcome to Clay Junkies, where clay obsession meets community. I'm your host, Lanette Jantelle. I am a ceramic artist in numerous magazines selling my pottery worldwide, also on Etsy and LanetteJantellePottery.com. So, the reason why I wanted to do this podcast is because each week I wanted to actually take you behind the scenes of the pottery world, sharing my own studio journey, taking and talking about what inspires me, as well as interviewing inspiring artists. And also diving into the techniques, challenges, and creative sparks that come from working with clay. With my producer, Steve. Hey, Steve.
Hi, Steve.
Hey! We'll explore all areas of pottery and ceramics. I want to talk a little bit about low fire, mid fire, high fire, and what I have done and experienced with my kiln, what type of pottery and clay that I actually purchase, the glazes I use, and from how I got started to the lessons I've learned and about selling and exhibiting my artwork, to the funny and sometimes it can be very extremely frustrating mishaps every potter encounters. Whether you're a professional potter or a weekend hobbyist or even simply clay curious, Clay Junkies is here to celebrate the messy, the magical, and meaningful art of ceramics. From the first pinch of clay to the final fringe and firing, let's get our hands dirty together. But before you go anywhere else, please subscribe and then join the community of true clay junkies.
Hey, Lanette, before we dive into the world of clay, can you share how you first fell in love with ceramics?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking, Steve. My love for pottery really grew out of my lifelong love for art. I would say, ever since I was 3 years old, I was painting, I was sewing, and I always took art classes through elementary, high school, even college. But I think what really made me and inspired me was actually back in 2020 during COVID, when everyone was in their homes trying to figure out ways to, do things that were inspiring while we were all closed in. I started thinking about ceramics. I started YouTubing. I started really, doing a lot of my own research. I had loved pottery so much when I was in college and taking those courses and just learning, the basic fundamentals and, kind of the scientific background about clays and properties, that I really wanted to learn how to do hand building, throwing. So it was really important to me to learn all I can and all I could. And during COVID, of course, no classes were being done or held. There were a few that I found online, but nothing that was more inspiring than just watching a lot of my favorite artists on YouTube. So that's kind of where I connected, and I started to just, practice every day and really, growing my love. And I started building my studio. We're going to do some episodes that kind of give you those studio tours and show you how I've organized my studio, where I place my clays, where I place my glazes, where I have all of my tools for pottery, and what has worked best for me. And I think it's important because I've seen a lot of newbies that get into pottery. And number one, you don't realize, there are some costs involved, but marketplace will become your friend. I have bought a lot of used pieces of equipment that have worked amazing. Kilns basically last for years. And so don't be hesitant to buy a used kiln. And we'll kind of talk about that in a couple of my episodes, to where you guys can see what I purchased, what I looked for, and how I set up my kiln room. So, whether you are interested in hand building or throwing your clay, we're going to go through all of the basics and really hope to encourage you. And I can share kind of like where my obsession really began.
Great. So tell us about what type of pottery you enjoy making most, like functional pieces or more decorative or non functional work.
I really love both. I think I started my first piece was making a mug. So, really functional pieces. They were calling me because, of course, everybody wants to build something that they can use and have on their desk. So, my very first piece was a mug. Then I started building plates. I started with hand building. So, that is my true love. I love, believe it or not, because you're going to hear from a lot of potters, they don't love wedging, but I understand the importance of wedging and getting all of those air pockets out of your clay, working with some of the best clays, and I'll go over that in some of my future episodes of what clays I actually use. But functional, I love to use. If you don't know what functional means, functional are pieces that you sell that people can actually use, like your plates, your vases. I love making vases. I do a lot of botanical impressionable vases where I pick herbs and flowers directly from my garden. It's so much fun to have that rosemary or basil, really impressed, because these are things that last a lifetime. And functional pieces truly are that. Non-functional is more of your artistic pieces, where my non-functional, I use mixed media. So I take a lot of jute or cotton cording. I do macrame and incorporate my pottery in that, which I'll show you. I do a lot of pieces that are artistic, that people can hang on their walls, that they can place on their side tables. I do some commission pieces, but those pieces are more or less pieces that I want to do, and it's just pieces that resonate with somebody that they want in their home. So when you decide to do functional or non-functional, it's really important to remember to do what you want to build, because I think that resonates with others. And when you really love a piece and you create it, and then when somebody buys it, it really means something. So keep that in mind when you're trying to decide on what type of pieces you want to create.
So then, Lanette, what is it you love most about hand building, and how does it differ from wheel throwing?
Hand building gives me total creativity, total creative freedom. I feel like when I'm actually building a piece, whether it's coils or slab, I feel like I have more creative authority with it than when I throw in the wheel. Maybe it is too because I need to still practice wheel throwing. I started off, as I mentioned earlier, by, really doing a lot of slab builds. Hand building is truly the type of art that I love to do. Wheel throwing is great if you're wanting to make a lot of pieces very quickly. And, when you get good at it, you can throw, 10 mugs in 30 minutes. I mean, when you're really good, you can be throwing, 20 bowls in 30 minutes. So, it really depends upon the type of artwork that you're trying to do. I like hand building because I can, really sculpt out my flowers. I love to do insects. I love to sculpt, just these little features that you really can't do in wheel throwing. There's some people that are very good at wheel throwing and they can create almost anything. Again, I'm not there yet, but we'll be exploring that together. So, wheel throwing is a wonderful for symmetry and repetition, but hand building really has that organic imperfection that I truly love. And I actually tend to send more hand built pieces than I do wheel thrown.
Awesome. Let's hear a little bit about your studio and how it's set up.
Okay, so my studio is definitely my happy place. I am here all the time. Uh, Producer Steve knows that, he often has to call me in for dinner because this is the place that I love to be. And every moment of my life, I am in here organizing. I am here really, I'm sketching out pieces that I want to build. This is my quiet space. And when we do the tour, I'll show you where I kind of keep everything. I am probably very OCD about being organized and being clean. I think in pottery, you have to really make sure that you pick up after yourself because there's a lot of dust with the clay. There can be a lot of fumes, so you want to make sure that you have the right safety equipment. But when we built my studio. We have a small farm here in Palm City, Florida, and it was a little barn that was built right next to our house. It was ideal for my studio. And when we started putting it together, I just knew I was going to love it. Not everybody, can have a small barn or can convert, a shed. But if you can, I highly recommend it because it really is great to have your studio outside of your house if you're able. I have, like I mentioned earlier too, I have a lot of equipment. I have a huge kiln, and that we actually, we added on. So having a space, for your kiln separate from where you actually are hand building or will throwing your clay and doing your glazing is amazing. So, really, my studio is everything. It's my area, it's my place where I get an opportunity to really think out my ideas. It is my hot creative spot.
Great. So you also sell your work online and in exhibitions. What advice would you give to someone thinking about selling their ceramics for the first time?
Oh, another great question. I would say, first and foremost, you got to love your art and believe in yourself. When you create something and it truly comes from, your vision, your heart, your techniques, other people will be drawn to it. Build what you want to build. Don't always think about, okay, what can I make that will sell quick? Because when you start thinking like that, then those pieces are going to look like everybody else's. If you create pieces that are truly your innovation, your imagination, you using your skills, your artistic ability, be different, then those are the pieces that people are really going to be drawn to and that are going to want to buy the most of. I have created things for the holidays, ornaments are great sellers, especially around the holidays, but do your own pieces. Like I definitely do a lot of impressed flowers and herbs into pieces, and people love them because they come directly from my farm. So if you have a little garden, right beside your house or in your backyard, think about things like that. If you love pets, think about things that you can create for those dog lovers. Really take in consideration of what your passion is because that is what is going to sell. I also like to really push myself to think outside of the box. So sometimes I'm going to make things that may never sell. That's okay. I'll put them in my house. My house is like my own art museum. And then it's funny because if I don't sell it or if I put it in my house and I have friends and family over, they come over and they love it because they see how I have it displayed. Bam, I sell it. So, you never know who is going to love your piece of art. Remember, everyone always says art is in the eyes of the beholder, and I truly believe that. So believe in your work, believe in what you do, and, keep trying, keep working at it and improving your skills.
All right. Well, before we wrap up, I want to let everyone know who's tuned in that we want to hear from you, our fellow clay junkies. Question of the week. What was the very first piece of you made out of clay and how did it turn out? Right? What was the very first piece you made and how did it turn out? We want to hear from you. Also, send your answers to Lanette at clayjunkies.com, and that is LANETTE at clayjunkies.com. And we'll read some of your stories in a future episode.
Thanks, Steve. So, everybody, thank you so much for turning and tuning into our very first episode of Clay Junkies. We've got a lot of exciting conversations and studio stories coming your way. So make sure to follow, subscribe, and share with your fellow clay junkies, where we're at, because we are right now going to be posting on Spotify, YouTube, and creating a lot of great memories. So looking forward to seeing you all soon on our next episode. And until next time, keep creating and keep your hands muddy.